I'm Jolene Engel, and you may have seen this video on the blog. And if you have, go ahead and pause it, and you could just click on over to the buttons to grab the book. But if you haven't seen the video, then stick around and keep watching it. Hi, I'm Jolene Engel from joleneengel.com, and today I want to put on a different hat and put on my mom hat and talk specifically to you as a mom or maybe even a grandma. And I want to share with you my Christmas ebook. I wrote it about 3 years ago, and I would have never thought that it would go into all the things that I do with my kids. It would go into book format, but it has, and it's just been a great tool to help me as a mom raise my kids up in Christ. So if you know a little bit about my background, I did not have a Christian heritage, and so I wanted to be able to pass that on to my children when I became a mom, but I didn't really know how. And I was a sick mom. My illnesses came on at the onset of motherhood, and so you bring in motherhood with little babies and toddlers and add Christmas into the mix, and the last thing you get is a mom with a gentle and quiet spirit. You usually get a mom who is overwhelmed or frustrated or anxious, depending on blending her family with her husband's family and all their traditions. And then you're trying to figure out, how do I teach my children about Jesus in the midst of all this? And so that's where I was as a mom. And really, the beauty of what the Lord did in my life through all those years of that illness was it forced me to choose the better part. I refer to my mothering kind of like the Mary and Martha. As a mom, you have to be Martha and have the hands of Martha, I should say. Not the bitter heart like Martha, but the hands of Martha. But when you're exhausted and these little ones are, they just need you 24/7, it's really easy to become just so overwhelmed and have that bitter heart and just saying, to the husband, you need to come over here and help me. How Martha did that to Jesus when Mary was sitting at his feet, and it's just like, Jesus, you need to tell Mary to come over here and help me. So I really looked at my parenting and I thought, something needs to change here. I didn't know how to change it. I just knew that I was becoming this angry mom, and I loathed the Christmas season because every mom probably knows that you do the majority of the shopping. Your husband might shop and get you a present, but you do all the shopping. And if you're hosting in your house, then you have even more demands. As a young mom, I didn't do the hosting. I went elsewhere, and we did my husband's family's activities for the most part. And I had to really take a step back because it was not working for me. And I didn't know why, because when my motherhood journey began, I didn't know that I had all these illnesses going on. I just thought that that's what your body goes through when you have a baby, and motherhood's horrible. I mean, that was really my outlook on it. I didn't realize that deep down inside my body was broken. So it was just like, okay, Lord, your word says this, but my reality is this. So how do I bring them together? And what came forth all these years now, my kids are now 12 and 14. And I started this with them when they were young. I mean, they had to have been like maybe a year to one to 3 or 2 to 4, somewhere in there. So the beauty of the brokenness in my body was, again, I said I was forced to choose the better part. And I love how God works the trials out for our own good, because had I been that healthy mom, I probably would have been doing every activity known to man at Christmas time, but I couldn't. And so I had to be so intentional about the time I was spending with my boys and just using the little bit of energy that I had to point them to Jesus as much as possible. And out of that came such tremendous fruit in their own lives during the Christmas season. And I'm so thankful for that. And that's what I want to pass on to you. So even if you're not a sick mom, you're a healthy mom, but you're managing all these different balancing acts and spinning all these plates, and you've come to the point where you don't care for the Christmas season either. It's because you've put too much of an expectation on you. A lot of times we want that Norman Rockwell type Christmas, and that ain't real. That's a picture. That does not happen. And my heart is to help you as a mama to point your kids to Christ and to truly have that Christ-centered marriage. So here's our fancy little cover to our ebook, How to Have a Christ-Centered Marriage, How to Have a Christ-Centered Christmas for Your Kids. It was formerly titled How to Strengthen Your Child's Faith at Christmas. This book originally came together for a homeschool group. I put it together for a homeschool group that my husband and I ran several years back. and I kind of wanted to revamp it and repackage it and make it available for all mamas, because what the Lord taught me in the midst of all this is something that I really want to pass down to you, because I know for me, I want my children to have that strong spiritual heritage, not just every day, but at Christmas as well, because Christmas comes every year, and Christmas evokes such strong emotions, and we could bring in such beautiful traditions, and I wanted Christ-centered traditions for my kids. Sure, I had some fun ones in there that I've done over the years just to be that fun mom, but the ones that really mattered are the ones that were teaching them about Jesus, because as they grow up and then leave my home, what's going to matter for them is the foundation of their faith, and how strong their faith is when they go through their trials. They're going to remember, hey, Mom and Dad went through some trials, and I saw how they handled it, and they've brought me up in this Christian home, and when I go through those hard times, I don't want to check out on my God. I want to stand firm in my God. And so anyways, the book, I tried to bring in as much Jesus as possible. I had your typical questions in my mind coming from a non-Christian upbringing. Yes, I was raised with morals and values, but having a relationship with Jesus Christ was not anything that I heard of in my household. So when I became saved and I'm reading about, should a Christian celebrate Christmas? You hear both sides of the fence. Some did, some didn't. And I'm like, why? What? Well, how come? It's his birth. And then you hear about, it's really not his actual birthday on that day, and Christmas trees came from a pagan origin. And I'm just like, wow, didn't realize that there was so much involved in all this. So I wasn't able to use my body for a lot of stuff during those years, but I was able to use my mind. So I did a lot of reading and a lot of research to find out, hey, are these true? Is this pagan origin true? And should I have a tree or should I not have a tree? So in the book, I address all those thoughts. The Great Santa Debate, that's in the book as well. As a Christian, do we introduce Santa? Do we teach them to believe in Santa? How do we handle this? You hear both sides. And I could tell you, I did not want to write about the Santa, because Santa's divisive. You put two Christians in a room and bring up Santa, it'll probably get heated. So I wrote the entire book on a Thanksgiving weekend, knowing that I had a short amount of time to have it done, because it's time-sensitive material. And I left the Santa portion last because I didn't want to write it. And I thought, okay, Lord, am I just done? Can I just write this part? Thinking, of course, he'll say yes. I was wrong. And he woke me up out of dead sleep at 4 a.m. in the morning. He's like, get up and go write about it. And I'm like, okay. So that discussion's in there. And I'm glad it's in there, because I've received letters now from wives asking, Julian, I've was raised in a Christian home, and my husband was raised in a Christian home, and they didn't do these things, but yet I did these things. And so what do I do? So I understand that. Again, I addressed the Santa issue. I addressed how to handle it if you're a new believer. If you have babies, what you could do. If you came to the Lord and your kids are older, what you could do, because if Santa's not there, they will miss Santa. And I didn't want my kids to grow up in a Christian home where everything was removed from them, where they couldn't, they weren't allowed to have just that fun celebration. So what I tried to do is bring Jesus in, the true meaning in, with some times of just joy and fun times for my kids. Because what I didn't want to have happen was, if I raised them up to not have any type of celebration, I didn't ever want them to say, that Jesus thing that my mom teaches us about, that sure is boring. So I had to be careful in how I handled it. And I brought in things like stockings. I addressed, do we have stockings? Do we not have stockings? Because stockings were originated, obviously, with the whole Saint Nick thing. I talk about some of the origin of old Saint Nick and my teachings to my children about that. And so all that's addressed in the book. And we have our stocking for Jesus. And I'm sure I'll find something in here, because it goes in here just about every year, or stays in here. It's letters that my sons, again, they're 12 and 14, but these are letters they've written to Jesus over all the years as, 3, 4, 5, 7-year-olds, about wanting to give them, their heart, or thank you for dying on the cross. And I want, I want you to have all my heart, I know one year my son actually made a little heart, and I think it's probably still in here. And some of the times we'd even get together with other, so I love you. He fashioned it out of some, type of clay over the years. we even would have these wrapped up. We'd have them wrap up their little notes, and you could tell that it's wrapped up by a kid. And we'd exchange it with some other kids, kind of like a gift exchange, but they're sharing what they want to give Jesus. And I know one year, I think one of my boys said, they wanted to lay down their pride and, get rid of their pride and stuff. And so again, I took kind of like the world's way of celebrating it, because it always grieved my heart. I'm like, this is my Savior's birth, and what can I do to put him up on the pedestal, because it's his birth. Of course, we had the Jesus birthday parties. In fact, I'm not even sure I put that in the book, because today I think it's very commonplace. I would bring the cakes, the happy birthday Jesus cakes, to family gatherings, and sometimes it's kind of like, well, whose birthday is it? And it's just like, hey, it's our Savior's birth, because it's that constant reminder. When you're raising up those little tykes 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, it can be a very convoluted message of who's Jesus and who's Santa, and what's real and what's fictional. I talked about it in my own upbringing and what I was exposed to and how I didn't understand, and just what was really hard for me, because again, as a parent, I believe that it's my job to fan the flame, the childlike flame in my child's heart. I talk about Advent. I can remember one year, many years ago, I was hearing Advent all the time. I'm like, what the heck is Advent? And why should I know about it? And would I want to teach this to my child? And so, again, I took the concept, learned that, oh, that's a great thing. It means to come or coming. And I thought, how awesome is that? Because when my kids were really, really tiny, we'd set up the manger in the house. And I've done a lot of different stuff. I've done it to where they've had to move the donkey every day a little bit closer to the manger. So that's in there. If you got plastic figurines, I would recommend that. Obviously, if you got little ones, I put all that information in there. But for the most part, we started off, Jesus was never in the manger. He didn't show up in the manger. Every day I would tell my children, has he come yet? Has Jesus shown up yet? Is he here yet? And they check, no, he's not there. And then I would teach them to do random acts of kindness, to where when they did, then they got a piece of straw, real straw, that they would put there on the manger place for Jesus so he could lay down, so it would be a soft spot for him. And again, the boys were really little doing all this. And then, of course, Christmas morning shows up, and, because Christmas Eve, Mommy put Jesus in the manger, and then at Christmas morning, here you got these two little tykes running into our bedroom. Baby Jesus is born! Baby Jesus is born! And they're just so excited because they've been waiting all month long. And so as they got older and I learned about Advent, I thought, how awesome is this? I could tie in Advent and some of that meaning into it, to where there's even greater anticipation for them, to where their eyes, my heart was always to teach them to put their eyes on the Lord and to seek God's presence, S-E-N-C-S, rather than the presence underneath the tree. Of course, they were drawn to the presence underneath the tree, but I didn't want everything that your heart is. I know as a mom, I didn't want my children to be filled with the materialism, like, what's the next present? I want more. We've taught our kids, you get 3 gifts at Christmas, just like how Jesus received 3 gifts. And, they were raised to be satisfied in that. And as we moved into the Advent, then I learned about storybooks for Advent. Okay, these are awesome. There's actually 3 in the series. This one's Jotham's Journey. My son, when I was reading this to them, I think he was either 11, maybe 11 at the time I was reading them, and he got busted. He didn't obey for something. I'm like, I'm sorry, you just missed out on, story time. I'm not reading Jotham tonight. And that boy at 11 years old broke down and started crying because he didn't get to hear about Jotham, because there was so much suspense in this. Now, I don't recommend this book for kids under 5, because there's some hardcore graphics, like images, not graphics in the book, but some stuff that the kids go through, and it's awesome. And here's what I've learned over all the years. Here's an Advent calendar that I found, and it's the story. I would always do Advent calendars that was the story of Jesus Christ, because again, the focus was on Jesus. And I don't believe that any child or any adult could get too much of Jesus in their life, because I believe that we need more of it, because we are all like sheep who are prone to wander and stray, and our faith gets weakened. And so if I could keep pointing my kids more and more to Jesus, that's going to impact their faith. And what I learned over all these years is, when I was going through a hard time in my faith, it was really encouraging to me then to pull out, maybe this little calendar where you, on the 13th day, you read a little bit of story of what's going on here. Oh, well, it's the wise men's camel, so you place him there. And then on the last day, this one only goes to 24, not 25, I don't know why. And anyways, so find these things. I talk about them in the book. I give you all these different resources, and you're going to find out as a mama that your faith is increased. One of the favorite activities that my husband loves, I put up 25 names of Jesus, King of Kings, Shepherd, Messiah, Great I Am. I mean, all the different names of Christ. And as the kids have gotten older, they would read the Bible verse about it. And I've got them listed. I went to the Dollar Tree, found little stars, wrote them on there, stuck them up on the wall or at the mantelpiece, and I've had that for years. And our Christmas, when we've moved so many times, there is a void if these things aren't here, because it was so common in our household to keep that focus on Christ. And I'm in America, I'm in California, Southern California, and there's always that battle of keeping Christ in Christmas. And my thought was, what happened to our nation that he's been removed? And I think this is a Christian holiday. And so my challenge to you, Mama, is not so much to have that perfect Christmas, but to have it Christ-centered, and to ask, how does your Christmas look different than a non-believer's Christmas? What is it that you're doing differently? I mean, yeah, we have our traditions, and my challenge is make them Christ-centered. There's nothing wrong with baking cookies with your daughter. I mean, those are great memories. I encourage it. But there are some others that we could be a lot more intentional about in helping them to see their Messiah. And now I've come to love Christmas. I make sure that I have that Christ-centered Christmas music on. We were raised listening, or the kids were raised listening to the little kids' choir singing Christmas music. And that stuff I can't think of the word for it, soothes my soul. And again, you'll be ministered to. So the book is very short. It's on Kindle. It's maybe 50-some pages long. It shares all these different activities that you could do. And it's $3.99. So my encouragement is to get it quick, because it's time-sensitive stuff. I make Advent very simple, what you could do, and it doesn't have to be a hard way to learn it. I don't get all uptight about Christmas anymore, because I know when Mama's stressed out, the home is not. It is not a good presence. And I've just learned, okay, how can I bring Advent in and not feel overwhelmed? What I tell myself is Advent is the 4 Sundays before Christmas. And so then that's when I start bringing out all the Christmas stuff, and I start preparing my home. So I encourage you to grab it. Again, I know it'll minister to you, and your kids are going to love it. I mean, I just shared on the blog not too long ago the edible nativity set. So yeah, you could eat the whole thing. So anyways, grab the book. I'm Jolene Engel, and I pray that you have that desire to put Christ at the center of your Christmas. Okay, take care.